Martha Karua is the party leader of Narc Kenya. She is here in the studio. Good morning, Martha.
Morning, and
it's good to see you looking warm.
Yeah, the studio is warm.
Out there,
it's brutal.
For ground, very different.
Yeah.
The weatherman actually issued a caution earlier in the week and said, expect a cold chill throughout this country for the next couple of days. In some parts like your county, Kirinyaga, temperatures are hitting 8 degrees and below. Can you imagine? Don't go to
We are near the forest, so it's
Don't go
bad.
to Gishogo this mother, please.
No, we know how to keep warm, but it's brutal.
Hey, it's cold. It's very cold, but good to see you.
Nice to
Karibu
see you
sana.
all. Yeah, thank you.
City has the day's proverb. This week, the proverbs are from the Republic of
Kenya.
Okay.
Whose president is?
Doctor.
Yes. An old pot never lacks food remnants.
An old pot never lacks food remnants. Martha, what's your interpretation of this proverb?
Maybe I'll equate it to the other proverb that the water will never leave out an old stone, meaning water will pass over. Yeah, so is that you never can lack to get some wisdom from the old. Yeah. Even if it's just some scrapping.
You'll get something.
You'll get something.
You'll get something. You can't go empty-handed. Yeah.
That's a good one, City. Write it down. Write it down. Next time you can say proverbs from Kenya.
Yes.
And you add that one.
And then you say, I being an old stone.
And you being water.
Will pass over
I
me.
now can call myself an old stone.
No.
I'm among the seniors. That's all.
In this country, yes. You're among the minority.
Yeah. Indeed.
The majority are
Indeed.
younger
Seniors,
ages.
yeah.
Karibu sana, Martha.
We've gotten there, haven't we?
Bwana. Yes.
You know, one moment you take exception to being called mzee.
Yeah.
Then the next moment you realize it's actually true.
Ukitano mzee, unaangalia, then you realize
I'm one of them. It's me that's talking.
I've now started telling my age mates that, look, that's us. Yeah.
We are the ones.
Yeah.
A lot is happening in the country, Martha. Before we come into the conversation about Limuru 3, okay? There is, of course, the ongoing disaster, the floods. It's left devastation. People are dead. People have been marooned in waters. People have been displaced. People have lost their loved ones. They have lost their livelihoods. All their belongings swept away by the floods. A message on that?
I think one of the things to observe, we are all saddened that we've lost Kenyans, that so many are suffering after the ravages of the floods. And that actually emphasizes how poorly the current administration has handled the response. There are two standards for the Ruto administration: how they'll handle the uppity areas and how they'll handle the rest of the country. So there'll be no demolitions in Runda, in the areas that are underwater. But in Mathare and other low-income areas, you demolish, you even don't care to check who is in. As a result, 2 people are dead. You also tell those who are along the riverine, in informal settlements, to move. When there's disaster, you evacuate. Those people don't know where to go and have nowhere to go. So, as an administration that is responsible, you evacuate them and look for temporary shelter. And because the administration looks like it's run out of ideas, we are suggesting to them, you have affordable housing built on taxes collected from us, forcibly, because majority of Kenyans didn't want the affordable housing, didn't want the housing levy. You've collected from us by force of the law. Please, and you've built them on public land. Can you evacuate these people in Nairobi and in any other county to the affordable housing If they are not ready, look for temporary shelters, but they should go to affordable housing free of charge because you are helping disaster victims. We do not even understand why they want to sell the affordable housing at prices that are lower, that are higher than those of the Chinese Great Wall apartments, which are built commercially. So, for starters, let us alleviate the suffering of those who've lost their houses and property in the affordable housing scheme. 10,000 is way too little. And we are asking this be done in our name and by our taxes, not from any deep pocket of a politician.
It's a Kenyan taxpayers' money.
Kenyan taxpayers. Anybody else wanting to give, that is over and above. Iwe ni bakshishi. Yeah.
I saw you yesterday with a group of people from Mathare.
Yeah.
And what was happening?
Indeed, thank you for reminding me that. The Mathare Social Justice Center in the Mathare community had declared 3 days of peaceful demonstrations. That was yesterday, today, and Friday, to express their displeasure, among other things, the poor response to the victims of the flood. Yesterday, the information I got is that 26 persons were arrested in the offices of the Mathare Social Justice Center. They were not even out demonstrating. They were holding an education workshop inside the offices. Among the 26 is a young lady who came from the States a few days ago and who had come to deliver a message to the Social Justice Center. So it was members of the Social Justice Center plus guests who had come in who were arrested. So when I was called and I was on my way home, I received a distress call. I decided to personally pass the Pangani police station. The OCS was not in. The deputy was in. He said, I wanted to ask for them to be released on bond. But he said, these are not our suspects. They've been arrested by Ruaraka DCI by the name of, shall I remember, was it Naomi or whatever the name was? They said it's Ruaraka DCI. I told him to call her or give me the number. He called. They spoke. She declined to speak to me, but she said she has no authority to release them, according now to what was being relayed, and I could hear over here, that the matter belongs to the regional commander, one Bungei. I asked for his number, they wouldn't give. We checked the OB, I got the OB extract, but not stating the charges, just saying that they were arrested at this and this time. So I went home and left them, and I believe this morning they are being taken to court. I just don't know how you incite while you are seated in your offices, and what would you incite, because a lawful protest is not a criminal offense. So this administration has criminalized dissent. All they were doing is express that they are not satisfied with how they've been handled during this season. Yeah.
Okay. We'll follow up and get the updates of what happens. I'm sure it'll come up in the news later on in the day. And also, if you get any updates, we'll be happy to receive them from you. Now, let's talk about a meeting that you are involved in organizing. And this is called the Limuru 3 conference. Now, we've heard about the Limuru conferences. Let's start with the background. What's Limuru 1, Limuru 2, and now Limuru 3?
May I say that personally, I did not participate in those two. I'm now participating in Limuru 3. But all of them have something in common. One, bringing the people of Mount Kenya together to forge unity of purpose. And each time was dictated by the times that were there, by what was happening at the time. At this moment, we are, again, rooting for strengthening unity of purpose, to be able to look at the issues of common interest, because even among siblings in a house, not all issues will be of common interest. So to tackle issues of common interest and to support one another and to strengthen our unity. And we believe that by strengthening our unity, we are contributing to a strong Kenya and the unity of Kenyans. And we believe any other community doing that. And almost every community, every block is doing that. We are not the first, we will not be the last. But whenever Mount Kenya says they are meeting, it raises temperatures. We need somebody to tell us why.
The first time they met, what were the prevailing circumstances that led the people of Mount Kenya to meet in Limuru?
I cannot be a spokesperson for the two meetings because I didn't participate in them. But I know largely the agenda was unity of purpose. Okay? Yeah.
This time, what's the prevailing circumstance now that makes you as a Mount Kenya leader to say, let's come together?
The hardships every Kenyan is going through. When I came into this studio, you were talking, you had something from KRA, which I believe you're doing on behalf of KRA, about the taxes, we would have said for landlords. But now from that conversation is a tax on the tenant. Because if the notice is going to be issued to the tenant, if the invoice is going to be issued to the tenant, you can see now the tax has passed on to the tenant, who already is oppressed. Because Kenyans are oppressed, there is punitive regime of taxation. Taxation should never be punitive. It should look at the circumstances, the prevailing circumstances. And I think economically, everybody, even the middle class, are feeling it. And if the middle class are feeling it, it means the vulnerable are feeling it and are almost paralyzed by it. So this is not a time to keep on adding, piling additional taxes. And if you asked about Mount Kenya, look at how taxes are increasing. Mount Kenya is a farming region. It's about agriculture and business, because agriculture brings in business. If you go to Mwea, you see everybody selling rice. You need not be a rice farmer. If you go to Kagio, you'll find people loading bananas onto vehicles and many other produce items. If you go to Meru, it will be the same thing. If you go to Embu, the same thing. So this region is about agriculture and business. We are being slapped with punitive taxes on agriculture items. Look at avocados. Look at macadamia. We've already been paying tax on the cash crops, coffee and tea. Miraa currently is being, they are levying a tax at the airport, a miscellaneous tax which nobody knows about. Nobody knows where it's going because it's not documented. You know, $5 or so per kilo. Where is it going? What is happening? You know, and for what service? What service is the Kenyan administration giving to the macadamia farmer, to the miraa farmer, to be able to ask for additional tax? Because if it's the roads we are using to take our crops to the market, we've already paid the fuel levy and many, many other taxes. So no taxation without representation. So let's discuss about it, see how collectively to have a pushback. And the meeting for Mount Kenya is actually good for Kenya, because we are not the only ones. We are feeling it and we want to discuss what is affecting our region. But what is affecting our region is also affecting the rest of Kenya.
I guess that was my question as well, Martha, because the thing is then, are we looking at a situation whereby leaders from the Mount Kenya region then are concerned about what is happening in the region? Or are we saying that it is leaders who are concerned about what is happening around the country corporately, or is it a hybrid of the two?
It's double.
Okay.
When you look at what is happening to you, it mirrors what is happening in the country. So it's good for everyone. And we need to look at the things we can do for ourselves and the things we need to pressure the administration about. And this is happening everywhere. When you meet and you're meeting within the liberty given by the Constitution and the laws, you will not go outside the Constitution and the laws. And the strength, I started by saying, the strength of Mount Kenya is the strength of Kenya. The strength of the coast is the strength of Kenya. The strength of the Rift Valley, or specifically the Kalenjin, is the strength of Kenya. The word Kalenjin, there is no tribe called Kalenjin. It's a coming together of people from a certain region, the Rift Valley. Yeah, it's the Nandis, the Kipsigis, the Tugen, and many others, because the gems are in there, and many others. So this is not the first time in this country that people come together and they meet. There are caucuses of those regions. There's a caucus for Mulembe Nation, and it's a good caucus. There's a caucus for Coast MPs, all forging unity. So I don't know why there is so much excitement when the people of the mountain say they are meeting, and for that reason, the administration starts showing signs of developing fear and start branding us tribalists. May I tell them that to begin with, we are several communities just coming under the umbrella of the mountain because of the community of interest. We just like the Kalenjin.
So who are the Mount
Just
Kenya
like
people?
They are from the Mount Kenya people are the people of 8 counties, but we consider our diaspora in other places as also part of it. So it's Mount Kenya and its diaspora.
Okay.
And I
What
am
are these
sure
8 counties?
and I am sure that when any other nation meets, it's also about them and their diaspora wherever they are. Diaspora meaning within Kenya mainly. Yeah. Because we are now using the word diaspora even for Kenya. Yeah.
What are those 8 counties? Kiambu?
I didn't say 8.
How did you say?
I didn't say 8. We are in more than 8 counties.
More than 8 counties.
And I'm not going to draw a map because we have said Mount Kenya and diaspora. So wherever you are in Kenya, you are part of. The gates are open for this meeting.
It's the communities around Mount Kenya.
And even if you are abroad, you are welcome.
Okay, Martha. Yeah. Is it the communities within Mount Kenya?
May I
So
say
the
it's the
Agikoyo,
Meru, the Embu, the Tharaka.
Yeah.
You know that if you are going to count is Tharaka Nithi, then you come down to Kirinyaga, the counties of central Kenya, and then we have people all around many other counties.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nyandarua is included?
Nyandarua was part of central Kenya.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is
that's I just said in short.
Is Nakuru
all those
included?
Counties. Yeah. Let me say that I
some
have
of them were
said
in Rift
Mount
Valley,
Kenya
like Laikipia.
and diaspora.
Okay.
That's what I said, and I'm not going to draw them up. Yeah.
Okay, because those who are pushing back are saying, all right, we have seen this conversation before. If we just look at Limuru 2 and what came out of Limuru 2, saying that one of the after very many conversations, and there are many things that were said after Limuru 2, one that stood out in the news was that, we need to have a leader who forges our issues and takes them to the national front and the national stage, and this is going to be Uhuru Kenyatta.
That was a resolution of Limuru 2. Because I saw the resolutions and I've seen them. This time round, there is no election. If you remember, Limuru 2 was held close to
the 2013 election.
2013 election.
Yes.
You can't start naming candidates or, so early. In the sense, you've got to give the people of the mountain time for everybody's dream to grow. If you went and named in your local area a certain person as the next MCA, that means you have excluded any of those nursing ambitions.
Yeah.
You've got the seats that are there in this country is not just the presidency. There are 6 seats. You've got to leave candidates and people to grow themselves organically and then close to the time. So this is not the time, and this meeting, because I'm privy to I'm one of the leaders arranging it. There is nothing about declaring anybody as a leader. Or queen pin, for that matter. I don't know why you only see kings. There could be queens, but not yet.
Let's take a break. Martha Karua, leader of Narc Kenya and one of the key organizers of the Limuru 3.
And an Azimio principle, don't you forget.
Azimio principle?
Yes.
Which one comes first?
all of them.
Oh, together.
Yeah.
Azimio principal, Narc Kenya leader, organizer, Limuru 3 conference, which will be on which dates?
17th.
The 17th
Next Friday.
of this month.
Next Friday, but one.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm not the only organizer. We are very many leaders from many political parties. Here.
Right. So leaders from Mount Kenya and the diaspora and interested people will be meeting on the 17th of May for this particular Limuru 3 conference. Siti, I know you have very many questions about this. Ask question number one.
Well, our good friend asked the question, why is it that when you hear the region getting together to meet, why is it that there's an apparent increase in temperatures and certain interests? Well, I want to try and answer that question. It's with good reason. If any group of people organize themselves and the result of the organization is not felt and it doesn't amount to much, nobody takes notice. It's of no consequence. But if it has an effect that can be seen, people then take notice. You see, it's not just that region. The dominant group in that region are the Kikuyu, okay? And they have produced 3 presidents, okay? Now, what one forgets is among themselves, they are politics. They're those who said that the presidency would not pass the River Chania. It did, okay? And now there are those who feel that perhaps in that region it's their turn that they are the president. I mean, come on, you've had 2 presidents from Kiambu, 1 from Nyeri. Why is Murang'a being left out? People of Kirinyaga will say, what do you mean you? You think we can't produce a president? And given what we did for the freedom of this country, what I'm saying is, these conferences, and Mheshimiwa rightly puts it, have been had by very many other communities. The only thing is, one does not see the effect of those gatherings. One hears a lot of words, a lot of movement, but at the end of it, it peters out and it goes poof. But then when you align the meetings to Limuru, unfortunately it takes us back 1966, a lot happened then, and that a lot that happened then also helped change the course of this country in very, very many ways.
What happened in 1966, Limuru 1?
Unajua, if I were to summarize it, it was a succession issue. If I were to summarize it. But then the then deputy, it was vice president, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, and Tom Mboya did not seem to see eye to eye on many issues. So remember, there's only one party. So that particular party was divided. There was Jaramogi and his people, and there was Tom Mboya and his people, and Tom Mboya took the lead in making certain pronouncements in Parliament. Jaramogi had a problem with it. It was decided people should meet to determine these things. At that point in time, there was one president, he was also president of the party. There was one vice president, he was also vice president of the party. One of the wonderful things about that conference, we had 8 provinces, if you, call it then. The party declared, that meeting declared 8 vice presidents of the party. So immediately, the power of Jaramogi was automatically diluted with just that one move. Other things followed. But people trace it back to that particular conference. Now, so when anybody who understands the history of it, as has been written by other people, you realize that that particular conference brought to the fore something that probably had been boiling within the party, but now it came up. So by the time people were parting ways in Parliament, and as it is reported, Tom Mboya declaring that, those who did not have the same view as others should declare, and people crossing the floors, and Kenya People's Union forming, and then a whole new chapter of Kenya's history began being rewritten. Now, that people point to that Limuru conference.
I think there is a mixing of issues here, a serious mixing of issues. The 1965 conference he's talking about was a conference of the only and ruling party at that time. And it was a conference to realign internal politics of that party, which affected the country. There is no ruling party that is organizing Limuru 3. Limuru 1 and 2 were not organized by the party in power. So other than the name Limuru that is common, the agendas of that conference are totally different and by different people. The Limuru 3 is being organized by coming together of political leaders, not even a party. It's political leaders from different political parties. So I'm saying there's a lot of mixing of the issues, whereas the resolutions can guide, and I pray that they have a profound effect on how we run our affairs, and therefore contribute to the cause of politics in the nation. That's the only similarity.
So why Limuru?
Limuru is a venue, and if you ask why Limuru, not Bomas, you remember when Jubilee Party was having its NDC, they booked Bomas and paid. But the administration, because Bomas is owned by the people of Kenya, pushed the management to rescind, even after it is paid. So you got to be very careful about venues. You've got to go to venues that are completely outside the control. We would have loved it to be at Wanguru Stadium. But if you go to Wanguru Stadium, through the county government, you might be denied the venue. The same with Kirigiti, Kenoru. We have many other places. But we've gone back to the dark era where legitimate meetings are being broken up. Just like that legitimate demonstration in Mathare. Why would you use tear gas on people who have already been hit by the floods? And all they are saying is that we are not well looked after. We would like you to step up the response. These are the things that are narrowing the venues that people could take.
Every time something like this, and it doesn't really matter on what level or what platform that you use, the hope is often, and I guess it's the assumption that even as you, from the planning point of view, that you can see the end, that you can see the result, or that you can see what an implementation activity would bring. What's that?
You see, I cannot come and anticipate and announce. Let the delegates in the Limuru conference come with the resolutions. But yes, we are thinking through and seeing what the end would look like. We will be able to talk about it after Limuru 3. Because then I would be preempting any discussions. Let the delegates themselves come up with that. And there are many, many issues that are there for discussion. The boundaries are going to be reviewed soon. The IBC is being reconstituted. We would like the constitution followed to the letter. The constitution says there should be equality of the vote, that the next review should focus on population. So we are saying our voice has been diluted. If our constituencies are over-concentrated with people, with number of voters, while other constituencies are having numbers that would elect an MCA in our area, that it means you get marginalized even in the distribution of resources. Every constituency gets the same basic amount. It means you're marginalizing people. Even the counties are marginalized. It means access to health is being affected. Therefore causing people ill health and even death. Education is being affected because bursaries cannot be, if you're given a small bursary with a very high population, we are well aware that there are areas since independence marginalized in development. And that's why I personally proposed the Equalization Fund in Naivasha, which idea I got from the Canadian Constitution. For infrastructure in marginalized areas where development is not at par with the rest of the areas. Funds should be set aside in the Equalization Fund. And I'm quick to add that for the last over 10 years since the Constitution passed, the Equalization Fund has not had sufficient money and it has not been utilized in the way envisaged. So there is a way you can balance development without compromising the education, the health, and other basic services to the people where there is high population. And know that it's not only the mountain that has high population. Look at Luhyaland. Look at even Nyanza itself. And I'm not just talking of Luo Nyanza, the whole Nyanza, both Luo Nyanza, Kisii. Look at the density of the population. We need to equalize the voices of Kenyans by bringing constituencies as nearly as possible equal in terms of vote. And then we take care of the issues of marginalization through the Equalization Fund. Yeah, because you do not cure marginalization by seriously compromising basic services for others.
Sure.
Yeah.
May not be a necessary counter-argument to those who say that, well, you know, what you're doing there is fueling tribal politics. However, the elements that you mention are corporate in nature, the country.
Yeah.
So, would people who align with this idea that we must do something about the situation in the country be welcomed at Limuru 3 if they're not from the Mount Kenya region?
Maybe if they thought they could be welcomed as observers. Yes. Even when we hold party conferences, we invite people who are outside that party. Yeah. There's nothing to stop people who seek to come being accommodated as observers. It's not a secret meeting.
Right.
It's an open meeting. And it is always good to have open meetings in the sense that even media will be invited. And that is to assuage fears that what is being discussed is would harm the rights of others. We will pursue our rights, but within the context of the bigger picture, that we are part of Kenya and we are part of a family called Kenya. Yeah. Just like in our traditional setting, you have the clan. But the clan is made up of houses. And the houses, or nyumba, they will discuss and then bring the issue to the clan meeting. So take Mount Kenya as one house, discussing to come to the larger clan called Kenya. Yeah.
To discuss the issues there.
Yeah.
There are those who are pushing back on this and saying, okay, why not just start as a Kenya conversation? Or, you know, the view of this is the tribal bit. And it's coming from the fear of our history. The fear of our history is once we start talking, you know, having tribal cocoons and tribal conversations emerging, then those are tribes that are plotting against the rest of us, or those are tribes that are coming together. And even if they're talking publicly, you never know the things that they say later on at night, as long as they were together.
That's a good one. Did you seek to interview the Mombasa people when they met early last year to talk about the welfare of the region? Have you asked the Mulembe Nation or the Luo Nation why, or even the Kisi Nation, why they are meeting as communities, or the Kalenjins? And you could do well asking Dr. William Ruto why they meet as the Kalenjin. I think we must not, yes, and the Somali community, we must stop, even as the press, fueling to the idea that when Mount Kenya meets, it's about tribe. It's about harming the interests of others. I've already explained. And we have issues that are peculiar to us. For instance, which other community in Kenya has ever had their elders arrested for going to a cultural shrine? We had our elders arrested in Murang'a last year, end of last year, for going to the Mukurwe Wanyakathanga, where we believe is the origin of the Kikuyu. So tomorrow, do we know what will happen when the Embus go to their own cultural thing? So we have things that we want to talk about. Some are peculiar to us. Others relate to us and the rest of Kenya. And I would want to say that when Dr. William Ruto was looking for votes, he concentrated on Mount Kenya, and the number of times he went there on forays, even now, are uncountable. We can see what his administration is trying to do to prevent us from coming together. We also have peculiar things, like the invasion of the Bibi farm by grabbers, and his name has been mentioned in it. And now they are not allowed to meet. They had a prayer meeting, it was disbursed. If it's over 1,000 people from whom you have grabbed 1,000 acres, how will they conduct their court case even without meeting? We can see that there's a concerted effort to scatter the people of Mount Kenya and stop them from meeting. Yet we have issues peculiar to us. Where else have you heard of a group farm owned by members of a community being invaded by this regime, except the Dabibi farm And recently for affordable housing, when they tried to grab land at Ruto and the community responded, we have many, many issues to discuss, some peculiar and some concerning the nation. And even those peculiar ones are an eye-opener to the rest of the country.
Right.
Yeah.
The organizers of the Limuru 3, reaching out, of course, inviting people to come.
Yeah.
I assume that you are reaching out to, like, the opinion leaders in the Mount Kenya communities and even the elected leaders in the Mount Kenya community. Am I right?
We've reached out generally to all leaders, and nobody is getting a special invitation. That reaching out is general.
So how are you doing?
So
with the
let
reaching
everybody come. People have come. We are receiving calls. People are reaching out. There is a general invitation. And if anybody sits down and waits for a special invitation, it ain't coming.
Yeah. So anybody is free to appear?
It is not a public rally.
Yeah.
So you want to come? Let the organizers know in advance so that you are among the list of delegates. Because if we make it a public meeting, it is wrong. The venue cannot hold a public meeting. Okay? And the character of a public meeting is different from a meeting by invitation. So the general invitation, those interested, reach out, make yourselves known, and then you will be among the delegates.
So who should they reach out to?
To the organizers, and the organizers are publicly known.
Okay.
Yeah.
So any leader who feels that they'd like to attend Limuru 3 and they have seen it now on Spice and KTN and they want to attend, they can call Mathare.
They can call. They can also call Kioni. They can call Kahero. They can call many leaders. And tomorrow, Friday, we are supposed to have a meeting, but now it's been declared a public holiday.
Yeah.
We are going to have a meeting together as the organizers so that we indicate where people can call to register in advance as delegates.
When do you hope to close registration? So that these people know that
next week, close to the meeting.
They're locked out.
You know, events when you are selling whatever. Let's say the stadium is holding 30,000. When you start reaching 26,000, you will now say, hold it there. Okay? We're full to capacity. So we are going to make an announcement which will include where people, which numbers people can call. And we will close registration as soon as. Because first is to create the interest and the demand. The interest and demand is there because we are receiving a lot of calls from the different leaders. People who have just seen somebody in the media, not necessarily me, but the leaders from the various other parties, and they are saying, hey, we want to come to this meeting. Yeah.
When you look at the country as a whole, and I mean, we're talking about the meeting here, because then if you want to take that, that section and say, look, we as people from this area then need to deal or handle these matters. Let's take and look at the bigger picture of the country as well at the same time and say, okay, well, when we started this conversation, you mentioned a couple of things and you said, look, things are not really going right. Are we at a place now where you think things are salvageable? And if they are, how should we go about them? Because we look across board. Okay, fine. Just yesterday, the doctors came back. They've said, okay, we'll come back to work. We've done what we think we can. Nurses, that's another story. Teachers, we don't know what they're going to do next week. I mean, we're looking at road infrastructure, put aside by a natural disaster. There's nothing we could have done about the natural disaster. But then, what happens thereafter? If you were to look and do an overview and connect that with what an administration's responsibility is, I think salvageable, and then for us to be able to then move forward in a proper trajectory.
It doesn't look salvageable unless they change course completely. Their number one issue is pampering themselves with our tax money. It is corruption. It is enriching themselves. Unless if they abandon course, like Saul on his way to Damascus, and become Paul, it's not salvageable. They keep digging deeper. Even this response to the floods, they have said 10 billion. I wonder if even $1 billion will go to the cause. That's how bad it is. This is the worst regime, as far as I'm concerned, in the history of Kenya. Corruption is at its highest. abuse of public resources. And I want to salute the doctors for their sacrifices, because returning to work is a sacrifice. They're truly patriotic. Because in the face of wanton waste of public resources, telling them that their issues cannot be tackled, it has taken great sacrifice for them to return. So how to change course? Stop wanton wasting of public resources. Stop the theft. Stop the leakage. Stop pampering yourself. And stop appointing cronies and showering them with money. Each person now has several advisors. I was in government once. I never heard of ministers having advisors. Now everybody has advisors. I'm sure even PSs could be having advisors.
No, why didn't you have advisors?
Because already you have technical people in the ministry.
Yes.
You have very highly qualified people. Those are your advisors. So this thing of advisors, you want to ignore the advisors in the civil service, so that you bring in your cronies and you check who is being brought in as an advisor. Sometimes you may laugh. Yeah? Even PAs, people will have a string of them. Yeah, so we are just saying, live within the means of the country. Stop emphasizing on buying fuel guzzlers, even in the wake of dire financial situation.
Yeah.
I do remember when I was appointed as a minister, there was an old 4x4 at the ministry. I used it for more than a year despite protests of my staff. I didn't change furniture until it got torn, because we found very little. And instead of crying every day that we found empty coffers, we were gathering to give services, and that was the signature of the Kibaki administration. People first. Anything else?
Comes later.
It comes later. Yeah, so unless if there's a turnaround in the thinking, in the trips, including the trips made by Dr. William Ruto, you are serving in Kenya, not abroad. Minimize those. This is a time of austerity. Minimize the number of delegation. Give as an example to your people. If you put all the trips together, the outside and internal travel, because even internally, people travel lavishly. Places you could drive, you go by chopper, you go by whatever. Those are the issues.
Those are excesses.
So unless if their mindset, and I don't see it changing, because also of the composition, where you strive to give Kenyans not the best quality, but the best sycophant. And I am not saying that 100% everybody is not qualified, but I'm saying by large, the character.
But Martha, with all these things, there's an institution that's created by the Constitution to oversight and check against these excesses, and that is Parliament.
Sadly, we lost it. There are very few people who can stand up and talk for Kenyans in that institution, and we see them in both the Senate and the National Assembly. The same with the county assemblies. We have actually destroyed the institutions of governance. The judiciary, we can talk much about the High Court, where you can get, and also the Court of Appeal. I think we have lost our institutions. They've been eroded, and we are seeing it.
How can we salvage this then?
Change of regime to begin with. Because I don't see them changing mindset. And Kenyans must start discussing. When did the rain start beating us? What is the quality of leadership we elect? And I'm not talking of one seat. Talk of all the 6 seats. When you elect your MCA, look at their track record. You remember in the 2022 elections, when we were giving our credentials, those without credentials were saying we don't want history because you have no history. Yet when you are employing a driver, you're going to ask them whether they have had accidents, how long they have driven. When you are employing a milkman, You want to know where they have served before. And if you were to hear that they used to milk your neighbor's cow,
You ask
hiding a small bottle inside their jacket, although the bulk of the milk is coming to you, you will not agree to employ them. But people of Kenya chose to employ people with doubtful record, champions of pilfering public resources. No wonder we are where we are. This is the right time to start that conversation as Kenyans and ask ourselves, do we want people who are proven, tried and tested? What do we want?
Martha Karua, Principal Azimio, leader, party leader, Narc Kenya, one of the organizers of the Limuru 3 conference that will be on the 17th of May, has been our guest.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.